Nigeria is potentially weeks away from a new government or the reinstatement of the Goodluck Jonathan administration, depending on how the vote swings. In the run-up to the election, a lot of issues and side issues keep popping up. We have invited today a legal brain to help us, to walk us through some of these issues. Lawyer Festus Keyamo is no stranger at all to a lot of people who've been following Nigerian politics. He was in the news recently for expressing solidarity with the APC candidate, General Muhammadu Buhari, as well as descending heavily on the incumbent president, Goodluck Jonathan. Hopefully, some of the comments that have been associated to him will get clarified on this platform. You're welcome to SaharaTV, Lawyer Festus Keyamo.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you so much for making the time. Let's go straight to this interview. You're convinced that General Buhari will make a much better president than Goodluck Jonathan. What fuels such optimism, if you can share with us?
Well, as it is now, we're down to just two choices, two viable choices. I wish we had more. I wish we had, different options. But the reality on the ground is that we are faced with two realistic choices. Now, if you look at them, nobody can say they are both perfect, totally perfect, and nobody can say they are totally imperfect. But the truth of the matter is that a decision has to be made. That's the difficulty. And once a decision has to be made, then you have to put your cards on the table. Many people are running away from that reality. But on that day, at that moment, a choice has to be made. So it is important, therefore, that the two candidates are put on a scale. Since we have gotten to this point, they are put on a scale and taking into account the realities on the ground, the dynamics of the situation and the society and the nation as it is now, right now at this moment, not 1976, not 1984, not 1993. I'm talking about 2015. Nobody should cite the dynamics of 1984.
What are some of these dynamics, lawyer? You speak of dynamics. What would some of these dynamics be?
It's very simple. This campaign is down to two main issues and a third perhaps peripheral issue. The first is the protection of life and property. The dynamics of the society now, the nation as it is today, is that people have been dying in their droves on a daily basis in the last 3 or 4 years. There's no single day that passes that you don't hear of the deaths of scores of Nigerians at one place or the other due to insurgency. That is the situation. That is one of the dynamics we are facing right now. The other one is that corruption has become so pervasive. It has never been so bad. It is done in our faces as it is. That is an issue now. And perhaps the third peripheral issue is the economy. It's important, but it is not even dominating the minds of the ordinary Nigerians. Those on the streets are talking, first of all, about the protection of their lives and property.
Security.
And then, of course, security. That's the security. And now, this situation. And that is why I think that it is important for the elites to speak up right now. The millions of Nigerians that are being fed with horde of lies, misinformation, disinformation, and all kinds of divisive issues on a daily basis, and they are not focusing on the issues at stake. And I'm talking about the government of the day.
Of the day. So,
now,
lawyer,
yes.
Going forward, I'm sorry to butt in like this. I'm trying to crash in as many questions as I can, because a fair bit has been attributed to you, and I really want to give you the opportunity to go through all of them. But talking about corruption, one of the major issues you raised just now is the issue of corruption. You have said that President Jonathan has no appetite for fighting corruption, and that code is yours, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely zero.
He on the other hand, though, has... Can I quickly finish the question, please? He has, on the other hand, said that corruption, it takes more than locking people up to say you're fighting corruption. Do you not see anything at all, any effort at all on the part of the government in terms of fighting corruption?
No, listen. Before you talk about locking people up, that is even at the last stage where you try them, you arrest and try them. We have not, you see, this government get off the board. You know, locking people and trying them is when you get to the end of the fight and you want to now, try them. The first stage is your perception about corruption. That is the threshold issue. Now, the entire perception of the president about corruption has come together, or have come together. All his thoughts and perception about corruption have come together in one singular act of appointing a certain Chief Femi Fani-Kayode as his spokesman. Now listen. This is a campaign dominated by the theme of corruption. Do you understand me? That is the issue. Now, that issue is dominating the debate on the campaign trail. And what do? You go and appoint somebody who is facing trial for money laundering as your director of publicity. You are not telling him to take a back seat. Look, listen, I'm not saying that the person has been convicted. I'm not saying that the person should not support you. I'm saying that anybody that has the correct perspective about the fight against corruption, you will tell such an individual, look, you need to take a back seat right now. You cannot be the face of my campaign. I mean, a director of publicity is the face of your campaign.
Lawyer.
And the face of your campaign is facing trial for money laundering.
Lawyer.
Does it add up? No, let me listen. Let me interpret that to you. The interpretation of that for the president is that, one, if you listen to the reply of I know that the amount that is left in the charges left again, they are not too much. So the president believes that when the amount of money stolen is huge, that is when there is serious talk about corruption. But when it's small money, there's nothing about corruption. He buttressed this by the fact that when he went to the East to campaign, he said that, Jim Wombodo was jailed in 1984 by Buhari because he allegedly stole a small money that cannot buy a B2 car. And that is why he was locked up. This is what the president said on his campaign trail. I am not guessing. I am not supposing. I am saying fact, hard facts. That is the perception of this president about corruption. The second one is that once you support the president in appointing Femi Fani-Kayode, the president believes that once you are vocal and voiceless in his support, then you don't need to be investigated, or you don't need to investigate regarding corruption. That is one of his perceptions regarding corruption. So he doesn't have the appetite. There's no annoyance inside of him when he hears about corruption. He doesn't react, And then look at the public perception. Everybody is bewildered. They are surprised. Why did the president do this? And then the president is not flinching. He's not flinching. So the president is also dead to public perception. He's dead. That's why, remember one of his famous speeches, he said, I don't give a damn. He said, I don't give a damn. That is the essential Goodluck Jonathan when it comes to the fight against corruption.
Enough said on that subject. Can we move forward a bit? There's been a fair amount of ado lately about your preferred candidate's certificate, school certificate, I should say. Even though the matter seems to have been resolved, we still hear issues, about inconsistencies. For instance, the way his name was spelled. As a legal brain, would you say the matter should be put to rest, or do you think that inconsistencies on a document, a legal one for that matter, raises red flags?
Now, listen. If anybody finds himself on the weaker side of an argument, these are the type of things they resort to. And I'll answer the question straight away before I even go to the other issues surrounding it. First of all, if you look at Section 131 of the Constitution, it does not even say the person has to pass his primary 6. It needs to only be educated to that level. That's all it's required. Just to be educated to that level is enough. And the Supreme Court in 2 key decisions have interpreted that section. And that's why I'm a bit worried that certain elites, even within my profession, are keeping quiet about this, because the Supreme Court has settled this issue that you don't even need to pass. You only need to be educated up to that level, and that's sufficient. Now, what we have is a candidate that is overqualified. We're not talking about a primary 6 school living certificate, which is the requirement of the law. We're talking about a secondary school living certificate here. That is what we're talking about. Now, if the school itself has said, look, this man passed through here, he got up to this level. Now, before we even look at the grades entered in that certificate, he has met the requirement of the law. He has been educated up to that level and beyond. Do you understand me?
Yep.
The second one is that if you are saying that some people are saying, oh, it was because it was previously Kasa, Kaduna, and all of that, let me explain this thoroughly to those who don't understand. A certain person, a member of the public called me today and said, lawyer, why are you not talking? I played the certificate before. I calmed him down and explained to him. Listen, now, there were certain schools in those days that, had different names because of the states they found themselves before the creation of certain regions, states, and all of that. Now, during the creation of the new states, these schools lost their identity and moved to new states. Now, if you now go back to those schools today now, I'll give an example. Maybe a school that is located in Enugu today. Enugu was part of the old Anambra state, if you remember. Enugu was part of the old Anambra state. So if you have a school in Enugu state today, that school was previously in Anambra state. So if the school was bearing at that time Anambra High School or something, perhaps by now it would have changed to another name.
What about now, the spelling of his name though, his actual name? What about that? We have very limited time, and there are two very important questions I need you to address before we go. So please.
It's irrelevant so long as you identify that is the person that went to that school. That is all. It's irrelevant. If you say that it's another person, because that, of course, throws up the supposition that he's impersonating that another person,
which is another argument altogether.
It's another argument altogether.
Yeah.
So you need to choose that person. But I mean, that is not an issue here because all his classmates have testified. We have seen photographs. We have seen himself and Yaradua in that school. So that is not an issue that he was the person that entered that school. So misspelling of names and all that is neither here nor there. That is not an issue at all.
Thank you very much.
It's a storm in a teacup.
Thank you. So now there are two issues, like I said, that I really need you to quickly touch on because I have very few minutes left. One of them is Boko Haram. We cannot finish this interview without talking about that because you've also said that President Jonathan has no capacity whatsoever to fight Boko Haram. What do you think General Buhari will do differently? What do you propose General Buhari do differently if he is elected as president? That is to quash the Boko Haram menace.
Yes, I even thought you would start with that because I think protection of lives and property is number one duty of government. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a general who knows the in and out of the military. They were even part, he joined in 1961 when the Nigerian army just started. It was not the colonial army. It was just, so you can say that this is somebody who was part of the first generation of the Nigerian army. What else do you need? This is a man who fought a war, and it was also a war of secession. It was not a war by a ragtag army. It was the war where you had a mutiny, where Ojukwu led part of the Nigerian army away. So it was also a training force.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Keyamo, but you admit that fighting a ragtag army is a totally different ballgame from fighting a regular army, being as the tactics have changed. You have civilians walking into marketplaces and detonating bombs and stuff like that. That is a totally different ballgame from fighting a regular army, you admit.
Now, there are two issues you should understand. One, suicide bombings, and secondly, the occupation of the Nigerian territory. So there are two issues here. If people come once in a while to throw bombs and all that in the marketplace and all of that, it is one issue that we'll tackle. The second issue, which is the most appalling and the most denigrating, is that as I speak with you, the Nigerian map is not complete. It's not complete because certain territories are in total control of a ragtag army that nobody has been able to do anything about for the past 2 years. Now, what is going on is confounding me. What is going on? The whole of Borno State, as I speak with you, except 3 or 4 key towns, Maiduguri, Konduga, and 2 or 3 others, are not under the control of the Nigerian army. Until a few weeks ago, they had swept 7 local governments of Adamawa State. They were almost getting to Yola before they were repelled, and they are still in total control of 2 local governments. In Yobe State, on 2 occasions now, they have entered the state capital. Do you know what that means in warfare? They entered the state capital, almost capturing governments. They have been repelled from Damaturu twice now in the last few months. They actually entered the city, the state capital. Gentlemen, what is going on? It is clear, therefore, that the president and commander-in-chief has lost control of the army. He does not know what is going on himself. And the problem is that since he has absolutely no background knowledge about the movement of troops, artillery, war, and all that, they can sit on a round table and tell him lies. His service chiefs, they are feeding fat on this situation. And I said in my piece, I said, imagine a situation where a General Buhari will sit down and the service chiefs, perhaps the service chiefs were still in secondary school when he was leading the Nigerian army into a war, sitting down to tell him about artillery, brigade troops. Just imagine them deceiving him.
Yeah.
How can it happen? How can it happen?
It probably cannot happen. Can I quickly move on to these 2 other issues, though, as we round up? They're kind of related to what I just asked you, though. First of all, a presidential advisor has suggested that the Nigerian election be postponed for the simple reason that over about 30 million voters haven't received their voters' IDs. What's your take on this? And please be brief on that, please.
It's very simple. The fact that they suggested it, and the suggestion came from a government spokesman, it means that the government has entered into a panic mode ahead of the election. It is panic mode they have entered. They are not prepared for these elections. They have gotten reports from the field that they are losing massively, and they are looking for a way to get prepared to rig the elections. Forget about all they are saying. Jega, that is INEC chairman, has said they are prepared. Jega, that INEC chairman, says, look, the problem is that people are not even coming out to collect their PVCs. That is all that is saying. He said they are.
Hello? Hello, sir? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
All right. Sorry, we lost you for a second.
The INEC chairman is saying that the major problem is facing that people are not coming out to collect their PVCs. So are we going to wait forever for collect their PVCs?
So I take it that you do not support that point of view.
100% no.
Okay.
No and no.
Now the last question is this one. The INEC also suggested a couple of weeks ago that certain areas may not exercise their franchise because of the terror situation. Will the mandate be complete without these people exercising their franchise? As a lawyer, you can definitely...
It depends on the margin. Yeah, it's very simple. It's a very simple issue. It depends on the margin of defeat between the person who wins and the next person. The margin determines whether it is legitimate or not, because we know the total number of voters in those local governments where the insurgents are occupying. Now, the total number of votes in those local governments, even if you add them to that of the loser, and yet he will still lose, then you have a legitimate victory.
Okay.
But you have a victor, and if you add those number of votes, the total number of votes in those local governments to that of the defeated, and it will surpass that of the winner, then you have a problem. You have to go and conduct by-elections there.
I see. Thank you so much, lawyer Festus Keyamo. Thanks for your education, thanks for your insights, and thanks for your time. That was lawyer Festus Keyamo, and he was expressing various opinions about various matters. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. This is SaharaTV, and there's more coming.